Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about why 5th edition players absolutely have to go to 6th edition, regardless of what's in the edition, as soon as possible and support that game, and cannot run that 3rd edition nonsense that happened with Paizo again. All right? So just to recap, 4th edition came along. A whole bunch of Dungeons & Dragons for players like, I don't like this. I'm running off to play Pathfinder under Paizo. Right? And it's one of the worst, most shameful times in Dungeons & Dragons history. And everybody who did it should be ashamed of themselves, in my opinion. If you're just like a TRPG, like lightweight, right? Don't worry about it. Move on, right? I don't think there's many people who watch my channel who are actually in that grouping, right? But if you consider yourself a Dungeons & Dragons fan, you ran off when 4th edition was there. In my opinion, this video is aimed directly at you, right? Because the reality is you caused a huge problem back then. You actually threatened the existence of Dungeons & Dragons, and the only reason it even exists today, in my opinion, is Mike Merles, right? He saved the game with 5th edition, right? So here's why 5th edition fans, doesn't matter what's in 6th edition, right? In my opinion, it can be written on a napkin and bound together with dental floss. I'm in. Right, I'm all in. I'm buying the core rule books, right, and I'm running the game immediately. All right. So one, there's a whole lot of reasons for this. One, the vast majority at the macro level, tabletop role playing game fans are rich generally, or they're extremely well to do. Right, you read 250 pages of you read 250 to 750 pages of rules for fun. Right, those people are making money. Trust me. There is a ridiculous overlap of I have a good job and I'm doing well within Dungeons and Dragons. Right, certainly not everybody, but at the macro level, I really think that's the case. And when I meet other people who play TRPGs, they're either getting their college degree or they have multiple college degrees. It's just a thing, right? So one, you could afford to, right? So it's okay. You can go ahead and spend a little bit to get the extra edition, right? And I think, really, if you've been a tabletop role-playing game fan for 3 years plus, you owe them the money to get the next edition, in my opinion, because of the joy and all the extra benefits that have already been added to your life from Dungeons & Dragons, all right? The next reason is, now I definitely understand that there are exceptions. There are a few poor, Dungeons & Dragons players. Even you guys need to come over, because the vast majority of the time, WotC gives a free version of the game, right? So even that's not an excuse. All right, so here's my next one. All right, this next one it's kind of an analogy, and I'll explain it. All right, I'm a huge fan of the show 911. It has Angela Bassett in it. It has the lady from the redheaded lady from Friday Night Lights in it. It has the guy who is the husband to the woman who played Lorelai Gilmore on the Gilmore Girls. It has it's a fantastic, really cool show about a dispatcher, a police officer, and a fireman. Okay, and it's a really unusual show. It's essentially it's not a genre show, right? It's a contemporary show, but they had this one simple. It was actually one storyline within one episode. And I thought it was a perfect analogy for what was happening with 3rd edition and 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and what we're about to see with 5th edition and 6th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So basically, the fireman arrives on site, right? And the firemen arrive on site to this house in the suburbs. It's a really large house. And there's a call that's come from in the house, and a brother says, brother Cecil says, my brother William has been trapped in my house under a crushed tunnel, right? And they say, what? And he explains, I have a lot of stuff in my house. He doesn't call himself a hoarder. He's absolutely a hoarder. And I have all this stuff in my house, and I wanted to protect it. So I actually made tunnels within the stuff, and I booby-trapped the tunnel. And the entire house is booby-trapped. So you need to come into my house and save my brother, who was crushed under one of my hoarding tunnels. He doesn't use the word hoarding. It was crushed under one of my tunnel portals. But when you enter the house, you need to be super careful because I booby-trapped it. This is a perfect analogy for what happened with 3rd edition and 4th edition, okay? So essentially, Cecil the brother is the 3rd edition player, right? And rather than go out into the world and experience 4th edition, They, by the way, Cecil never leaves the house, and William goes out to the house, gets their groceries, and comes back. So that's why he got crushed under the tunnel, because he was pulling all these groceries underneath this tunnel, and it booby-trapped, it fell on him, and he's crushed underneath in his own house, right? It's a perfect analogy for 3rd edition. They had all these books, right? They didn't want to go over and see what was out in the real world with 4th edition, right? I just want to stay here huddled up with my books, right? But they actually damaged themselves, and they damaged other people within the community by saying, "Oh, I'm not going to try something new. I'm going to clutch to the old." And guess what? There's a company that's going to make new stuff in exactly the same vein as the old stuff that I used to play, right? It's hoarding, right? Pathfinder was a hoarder's paradise. It was people, Paizo was selling product to hoarders, right? Agoraphobic hoarders. That's what was happening, in my opinion, right? And so, and to me, that's crazy, right? And one thing that just, that showed me, every single person on this planet who loves Dungeons and Dragons and considers of a Dungeons and Dragons game, you need to be down for 6th edition. It doesn't matter what's in the book. You got to try it. You got to get out there, buy it at the midnight release at your FLGS. I did that with 4th edition. I hope that they do that again with 6th edition. If you're lucky in your area, they'll have that kind of thing. And then you need to run it, right? And then if you don't like it, then at that point, to me, the best path is, at that point, if you really don't like 6th edition, what I would do is go find new tabletop role-playing games. I would not return to 5th edition, right? I think that's the best path, right? And then when you do that, all you want, talk about your cool your new editions, but don't down people for playing 6th edition, and realize also they probably need you as a player at the table. It's important. It is really, really important, right? And so, but I want to give you this last part to the story with Cecil and William. So the firefighters actually harmed themselves considerably getting into the house. They actually get into the house. They're struck by several of the booby traps. Some of the fire people are injured. And actually, this is a perfect analogy. I really feel that Pathfinder injured players and injured game masters. It was a company selling product to agoraphobic hoarders. When I look back at Pathfinder now, and the biggest reason why I had this is if they had walked out respectfully, if Paizo had walked out respectfully and said, "We're going to supply this," but they rejoiced when they were out selling Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I really think they wanted to kill the game. They wanted to make Pathfinder the tabletop role-playing game that was going to be there. I really have serious beef with what Pathfinder did. They were just kicking somebody when they were down. 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons was down, right? Rather than building their own cool game, they went in there and they hawked all those Dungeons and Dragons fans, and they threatened the very existence of the game. Right? That's why I feel so strongly about this, right? So basically Cecil, he's the one who never leaves, and William does leave. The firefighters finally get in. They're damaged and bleeding, right? They pull William out, right? And William's bad. He's bleeding out, right? And so he's pretty badly injured. Actually, he's not bleeding out and die, but he's got like a bone fracture, right? And William is crying. He's saying, "Don't take me out of this building. You can't take me to the hospital. I have to stay here with Cecil. I have to stay here with Cecil, right? Because my brother, he can't leave this place, right? He can't leave this place, and he can't be alone, right?" And so William is showing all this love for his brother. And Cecil says, "You know what?" He says, "No, William, you do need to leave. And you can leave. And the reason why is I'm going to leave with you." So this agoraphobic hoarder is like, my brother needs help, and I need to get him to the hospital, right? And he left. He left that house, and he said, "It's not cool being an agoraphobic hoarder. I'm going to go with my brother to the hospital and do the right thing. I'm going to see the outside world," right? And that's what we need to be. We need to be Cecil, right? So if you really don't like to see a new version, right, you need to think about Cecil. You need to be Cecil. You need to stop agoraphobically hoarding editions and go see the outside world. It's not healthy, and we need to make ourselves healthy by being and by the way, this is just for Dungeons and Dragons fans. If like you're a Dungeons and Dragons lightweight and you don't even know how to spell it, or you haven't played a lot, this isn't for you. But if your life is as rich as mine, or if you've gotten friends, literacy, extra social skills. Sometimes some people have received, they almost get a therapeutic effect from playing Dungeons & Dragons. If you've been blessed in some of the major ways that this game, if you've had an improvement in imagination, an improvement in creativity, if you've widened your friend circles, you owe it to Wizards of the Coast. You owe it to the design team on Dungeons & Dragons to buy and try 6th edition. If you really don't dig it, I'm cool with that. Go find a new game. Don't go back to 5th edition. There's tons of good games out there. It's better for the hobby for you to move on. If you cannot, I really feel strongly that going back to old editions harms Dungeons & Dragons and harms the hobby overall. Other games need you. If you don't like 6th edition, move on to new games. I really feel like that's the best way to go. So my point is, when 6th edition comes out, if you're a Dungeons & Dragons dyed-in-the-wool fan, you need to try 6th edition. You need to have an open mind and an open heart and let this thing live. Take care.